Heavenly Father, we beseech Thee. I kneel before You as a member of this age-old craft, praying to You for guidance as I am on a journey for more light, but more especially light that has been lost, forgotten, or hidden among the ages gone by. The light that connects us with our very meaning and informs us of our purpose. Light locked deep within our past, beyond lips that no longer speak, and paths forgotten, no longer traveled. Aid me in my pursuit, Lord, for historical light.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Historical Light, an independent Masonic show focused on the historical events and aspects within Freemasonry. As always, I'm your host, Brother Alex Powers, and I want to thank you for joining us again. Today is episode number 18, and we're going to be talking about lodge dues, both then and now. So it'll be a great show. But before we get into that, we're going to start off like we always do with our friends over at MasonryToday.com. See just what happened in Masonic history today. Today in Masonic history, Francis Baylies is born in 1783. Francis Baylies was an American politician and was born in Taunton, Massachusetts, October 16, 1783. He studied law and was admitted to the Massachusetts bar in 1810. Shortly after being admitted, he set up a practice for himself in Taunton. From 1812 to 1820, he served as the Register of Probate for Bristol County, Mass. In 1818, Baylies made his first attempt at being elected to public office. He was, however, unsuccessful in his bid to gain a seat to the U.S. House of Representatives. However, in 1821, he made a second attempt and was successfully elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He sat in the United States House of Representatives until 1827, when he was unsuccessful in his re-election bid. Later, in 1827, Baylies was elected to the Massachusetts House of Representatives. He served there until 1832, when President Andrew Jackson appointed him as Charge d'Affaires in Buenos Aires. A Charge d'Affaires, and I apologize for any mispronunciations there, is a diplomat that is appointed at times when an ambassador is not available or under special circumstances. This was done after the USS Lexington raided the Franklin Islands after Louis Vernet attempted to assert his monopoly on seal hunting. Vernet seized at least 4 American fishing vessels and had begun outfitting them for war. Baylies and his family arrived in La Plata on board the USS Peacock. They were accompanied by 2 British ships, both of which playing Hail Columbia in honor of Baylies arriving. At the time, Hail Columbia was an unofficial anthem of the United States. Baylies' appointment was very short, however, and he returned with his family to Massachusetts in 1835. He then ran again for the Massachusetts House of Representatives successfully, and later in life engaged in literary pursuits. Baylies passed away October 28th of 1852. He was a member of Mount Lebanon Lodge in Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you again to our friends over at MasonryToday.com for another great article. Definitely check them out at their website and social media so you can keep up with the rest of the great articles they put out on a daily basis. But for now, let's jump over and pay the bills. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Masonic Revival. If you haven't checked them out yet, do so today, right after the show, at MasonicRevival.com. You're going to find an excellent source there of Masonic bow ties, neckties, lapel pins, and much more. And if you use our promo code, which is all caps, one word, HLIGHT, I'll say it again, all caps, one word, HLIGHT, you'll get free shipping on your entire order. So definitely take advantage of that today at MasonicRevival.com. Now, the show's also brought to you in part by viewers like you. If you like to see what we do here and want to see us grow and continue over time, you yourself can support the show. Go to our website, historicallight.com, click on Support Us up in the main menu, and you can give to the show through the means of PayPal safely and securely. And you can do that on the basis of a monthly donation or a one-time donation. And we definitely appreciate everything you're willing to offer. All right, well, that pays the bills. All is well in the world. Let's jump into our interview for today. I hope you enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to Historical Light. We are thrilled today to have on the show brothers Nick and Robert Johnson, and they are going to be touching on the subject of dues with us. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and hand it over to RJ. Let's go with you first. If you just kind of want to further introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Robert Johnson, known as RJ to some. I should say also at the beginning of the program you said both Robert and Nick Johnson. We are not exclusive to each other or related, although I wouldn't mind.
It would be awesome.
So, that's right. I guess my background is about 9-10 years ago I joined Freemasonry. Went through a very typical way, got my degree, returned to long-form catechism, got a degree, long-form catechism, got a degree, long-form catechism. I went through in about a month and a half, and went through the chairs, went through all my chairs, was worshipful master back in, I think, 2014, 2015. A couple of years spent as a district education officer and current sitting whatever you want to call it, district deputy grand master. Some people have district inspectors. So I'm a DDGM, going into my and current sitting secretary of my lodge and various other goofy orders.
Wonderful. And Nick, we'll jump over to you. If you want to further introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background as well.
Sure. I'm Nick Johnson. So I joined in 2006. I had the way in which I found the fraternity was through Abe Simpson, also known as my grandfather. So he had a letter on his desk from Thanksgiving from the Knights Templar, and I thought that was a little odd considering the Knights Templar don't actually exist anymore. And he told me that he was actually a stonecutter. He was actually a Freemason. Had no idea. And he explained it all to me and said, "Hey, this is Freemasonry. I've been a member for like 100 million years, and yeah, I never tell anybody." And so from there, I joined, went through all the chairs, became worshipful master in 2010, and then I joined everything else because I had to run the small business known as Corinthian Lodge number 67. So, and then after that, it was just a nice ride through all the other bodies and chairs I've been through.
Wonderful. Well, Nick, you had just mentioned having some family history. What all family history do you have within Freemasonry?
Let's see. I'm trying to think how far back. So my grandfathers were both Freemasons. And actually, my father was raised by my grandfather after I signed his petition. So it was kind of a circular back deal. I think my grandmother's father, his father, and then I think it's about 4 or 5 generations back, might be a little bit further. I come from a family of railroad workers, and the thing about Freemasonry and railroad work is that it was often a way in which a guy who was working on the rails could actually meet up with other people that he may or may not have known, to get help along the way. If you ever look at a map of lodges and a map of railways, they almost always are following the same path and trajectory.
Right on. Well, RJ, what about you? Do you have family history ties within the craft?
Where'd it go?
There we are.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
So I have like zero family history, or so I thought.
Oh.
I had looked very close and tried to find any relatives that were Masons. Led me down a wild path of finding out that my family was, here in almost the very beginning, and they migrated south and were part of all the wars and went through looking at all the history, and finally I found one gravesite, Gilbert Lafayette Johnson, who was a Mason. All I have on him is that the square and compass is on his gravestone. I've contacted the Grand Lodge of Arkansas, to get those records. However, I was explained that they had a massive fire and so many records. Basically, you could come down and take a look, but good luck. I've not actually made that journey, but my wife's side of the family, you know, her father was not a Mason, but her grandfather was, and so on and so forth. Probably 3 or 4 generations deep. In fact, it's kind of a weird thing to say, your most expensive Masonic ring, because we all buy these $20, $30 rings. But my most expensive Masonic ring is actually probably 150 years old. It's from my wife's father's side of the family. It is a Knight Templar ring with the we have a keystone on one side, the square and compass on the other, and then the top is it's fairly soft gold, right? So it's the top was like almost like an open book. So I'm assuming a Bible, and then on top of that was the crown and the cross through it. But anyway, that's really my only tie. I was hoping to find more on my father's side, but I'm sure there were many more. But I also don't want to look too deep. Probably some cognitive dissonance there, because they were pretty involved in the Confederacy. So
well,
I don't want to know what they did.
Well, you had mentioned there destruction of a fire, and I mean that's kind of unheard of in Masonry, is it not?
Oh, this guy's a joker.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that's got to be
sure.
one of the key factors I push. You know, I frequently give a lodge presentation on the preservation recovery of lodge history, and those are always the two things we always cover is water and fire. They're your two biggest nemesis within the craft. I don't know what it is, but we're like a magnet for them. So,
well, it's actually
Inundation
kind
or
of
conflagration. What?
right?
well, and that's actually kind of funny. Is that Corinthian, the Great Fire of Farmington, actually burned down our original building, and the way that in which we didn't have any other records except for the minutes books, because the brothers actually ran into the lodge,
Right.
grabbed the minute books, and ran out of the burning building, saving those minutes. So, you know, it's bizarre how you know you find minutes to be so mundane, and yet those brothers were right into the fire.
Well, you know what's awesome? I have the exact same story with my lodge. Gardner Lodge, originally chartered 1868. Original building burnt down in 1906. Same exact deals. You know, 2-story building, shop on the bottom. I believe it was the secretary, from what I've been told. Ran in, burning flames and everything, and recovered the minute books and a couple pictures. The Constitution and something else that was framed, still all smoke covered and stuff. But all we got was our record books. Everything else was lost. So, awesome
and
stories behind it.
oftentimes those buildings, they would actually be built near railway lines. And the thing is, all engines back in the time were hot boxes. You know, the oily rags shoved in to kind of keep everything from sparking inside the engine. But you know, if they weren't cutting the brush down, they would just ignite, and that's what would happen. So I mean, almost every one of these stories happens because of either a faulty boiler or a train passing by and starting the whole town on fire.
Yeah, it's a sad truth. Well, kind of moving on a little bit here, what is it that actually brought you guys in to make the leap into joining Freemasonry? Whoever wants to start. RJ, you want to go first?
Sure. Basically, I was very much into philosophical teachings, kind of diving into some of the deeper, I'll use the term esoteric, but at the time, it's probably not what I was thinking about. And basically, I got a book. A friend of mine, an artist friend of mine, lent me. Yukitaro Hamada, a great guy, a great artist, gave me this book of Masonic tapestries. And I'm flipping through, and it's just like barely these little captions of maybe what's going on within these scenes and these tapestries. And I remember seeing a very famous one that we've all seen. I'm not going to disclose what it is, but culmination of a third degree, maybe. And I thought, this is really crazy. I got to find out more about this. And so I started diving kind of deep, right? And what I would read on Wikipedia, and keep in mind this is like 2005, I would read like on Wikipedia about how these guys did work, and they were Masons and they did work, and I kept thinking, well, like, what is this work that they keep saying that they're doing? I mean, are they talking about philosophy, and are they actually like chipping stones like these ashlars? Like I was having this mental image, right? I really wasn't versed in what it was at all. I then later went to Petition Lodge to kind of check it out, which is Orange Lodge in Orange, California, and I totally chickened out and waited a few years. I ended up joining, I think, in 07 or 08. And that's kind of the story about how I went about joining. Again, was looking for that philosophical element, and we all know how that turned out. So,
Indeed. Well, we're glad you did make that leap.
Yeah, I am too.
Nick, how about you? What is it that caused you to make that leap into joining Freemasonry?
Sure. So as I was saying, it was Abe Simpson who actually got me in, but actually it was my years in college. And actually he was like Abe Simpson. Like, you couldn't understand anything my grandpa was saying because he was deaf, because he was a railroad engineer. So I don't want to be. Anyway, at college, I passed by the Masonic hall that was in the town where I went to school, and I would see the square and compass and think, this is amazing. This is like the coolest thing ever. And then you're both gonna laugh at me. I'd see the Eastern Star symbol, and I thought that was the most esoteric thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. Look at it and go, look at this thing. And so my former girlfriend, now wife, I'd elbow her a little bit and say, look at this most esoteric symbol. I mean, I don't even know what this is. I mean, it's upside down. It's a pentagram. Yeah, I found out later it's not as cool as I thought.
I mean,
but
it is
anyway.
evil. It is evil.
Yeah,
but.
yeah. So
Quality advertising, right?
So, yeah, exactly. So, that's how I got in, was because I was looking at this building every single day, and I've always been interested in history and architecture and things like that. And so, I'd look at it going, wow, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And then my grandpa, all of a sudden finding out that, oh, he's been a Mason the whole time, find out that he's been involved in a million things, because that's just what they did back then. It's that's how I got into this whole gig. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm totally glad you guys made the leap in. What you guys have both done for the craft has been awesome, and I got to say, you both have been mentors to me for quite some time now. If I can learn how to speak tonight, so it's a pleasure to have you on, and to find out that your grandfather was probably in charge of those fires. You said he was running the trains, right?
No. He was luckily in Austin, Minnesota, so they were smart and built it away.
There you go. Well, to kind of segue into tonight's topic, we're here to talk about dues. And I had recently came across this. I was working on a presentation that I recently gave at a Grand Lodge deal, and I was trying to come up with some material for it, and I flipped open a book in my lodge. This isn't the original numbers from 1868, it's from 1882, but I flipped it open, it's written right there, and it's just, bam, it's what really caught my eyes. So I'm going to touch on this, and then we're going to talk to the two of you and kind of go over just dues as a whole perspective, where we were, where we are, and what's up with them. So keep in mind, these are numbers from Gardner, Kansas, not New York City, not Kansas City, Gardner, Kansas, very small rural farm back in 1882. So in 1882, Gardner, Kansas charged $10 per degree, first, second, and third. Equivalent today, it's around $227 per degree. So you're looking at about $681 to reach your Master Mason. Annual dues at the time were about $2. Calculated into today's money, it's about $45.42. On top of that, you got Grand Lodge per capita, which was 50 cents, or about $11.35 today. So to put that into perspective, today we're charging $75 all 3 degrees flat. We're charging $26 for our annual dues, and then about an additional $24 for Grand Lodge per capita, which is on top of that, which brings us to, $50. So for our degrees alone, we went from a value of about $681 in 1882 to $75 today. That spoke volumes to me. To put it into more perspective, that $75, we give the candidate materials. We give them cipher, study pamphlets, leather apron. That stuff brings us to about $7 cost to the lodge. On top of that, there's a $5 fee from the Grand Lodge to actually raise a brother. So when it's all said and done, every time we bring a brother into the lodge, we're shooting ourselves in the foot and we're sitting negative $10 in the hole. Like, that just really stunned me right there. Not only are we giving away the secrets of Masonry for free, there's no value to them paying you to come in. And I'm not trying to throw my lodge under the bus here. These are numbers that you find everywhere. And, you know, every lodge's dues vary from lodge to lodge, but everyone I've talked to is in a varying state of the same degree. They're finding that same harsh reality. Every time they bring someone in, it's actually putting them in the red. You know, there's no value there, and what's really making the person stay when it's not valued? If you look at our dues in 1882, a value of about $45. Today we're charging $26. We've chopped those in half. Grand Lodge has doubled, and they've told us that, you know, they have to keep raising to actually stay afloat. So I'm really at a point that, you know, it's a shocker to me seeing the value that we've placed on this craft that we claim means the world to us. You know, we'll pay so much for cable and phone and gripe about the quality of our cell service and gripe that there's nothing on these channels we're paying $200 a month for, but we can't pay a cup of coffee for the lodge experience that we all desire. Now, there's sides to that too, and, you know, we're going to touch in on all this, but the value factor. You know, we raise the dues. Is there value to stand up to that or make it worth it? But at the same time, we're talking about the craft that our brethren have cherished and brought to the point that it is today. We're giving it away for free. So both of you brothers, I wanted to bring you on because I know you're both passionate on the subject. You've spoken, written on it quite extensively, and really caught my attention. So I'm kind of hand it over and see, what is your guys' perspective? What have you seen on this, and what's your thoughts?
Well, I'll bite. So Nick and I are both huge proponents, right off the bat, of saying dues should be higher. Mm-hmm. I think we have some different thinking about why, but I think we also have a lot of overlap. The numbers you describe are 100% like accurate. Like, right. It is by no stretch of the imagination to say that is, you know, 90% of the lodges in the United States, whether that's a small farming community or even big city. The only reason big city lodges tend to have higher dues and whatnot is because maybe they have some, like, you can look at economically, it costs more to live in the city, so you're probably making more money. And if you're making more money, there's a chance that you have more expendable income and you value an experience, and you have this kind of maybe thought that things are worth more and you're willing to pay more, so you move in that direction. I mean, there is an economic side to that and that thinking. Waukegan, our history has been very similar. The dues to become a Mason for us, I can't remember the exact amount, but I want to say it's very similar to what you were talking, because I think for our lodge to receive all 3 degrees, it was around $800. Waukegan was interesting. It was started as Waukegan was actually called Union 78, and then Waukegan 324 like 6 years later, and they later merged to form Waukegan 78. But basically, Union 78 was comprised of doctors and lawyers, and Waukegan was blue-collar workers. And the mindset of the dues back then, I'm not really sure. They were meeting in union halls. They did build a gigantic structure in the corner of right. We've stayed in the same area in Waukegan like all of our history within a 2-block radius, and so I get why we spent $820 to bring the guys through the degrees. The dues were very similar in respect. They were about $40 or $50 back then, all in terms of what we would charge today. But also, we declared fees for missing meetings also. So, like, if there was a monthly communication and you didn't show up, you were charged 20 cents. And then you were billed like quarterly or twice a year, whatever it was. And we had to make some rough choices here in Waukegan just recently. 2 years ago, the year I went into the East, I started when I was senior warden, bringing presentations to the lodge on where does this money go. We have several accounts. It looks like we have a lot of money. But we really don't, because most of it's tied up in bequeaths. So they will, somebody who dies passes on, $100,000 to us. But it also is stipulated that money is to go to a charity. So that's not operational cost money. And it's not like, lodges are real great about keeping separate accounts. It's separate accounts on paper, but we just dump it all into the same account.
Right.
And that's real typical, and I think it's dangerous. But so we had to look at that, and we took the dues. We went from where we were, which was at $60, and we doubled them to $120 for the dues. It now costs, on the whole, we are the most expensive lodge in our district to acquire the degrees. So as a district deputy grand master, I have great anxiety about the fact that we have 7 lodges in our district, and if I calculate the amount it takes to become a Master Mason, so if I'm talking about one lodge in our district to petition, to purchase all 3 degrees, and 1 year dues, so no prorated amounts, so like just everything in one shot, you can become a Master Mason for the low cost of $275. My lodge cost $620. So there's a huge difference there, and we're talking about a 20-minute drive. So when guys ask, what's the difference? I don't know what to tell them. Right. I like to think I'm a little bit biased in my own lodge and say that I feel like maybe we have some practices within the way we do degree work that make a real difference. But then, of course, that's kind of like the holistic value of dues. There is the operational cost of dues, which is, what does it cost to run your building? What does it cost to do this? What does it cost to do that? And like you were talking about, you guys run it the whole by $10, and we're not. So to petition our lodge, it's $200, and then each degree is $100, and the dues are $120. So out of all that, we come out on top the first year, and then there's those fees like the petition fee and the degree fee. Those all go into an operational fund that allow us to get a Bible, an apron for a candidate, and also like a little, it's like a, whatever you want to call it, small ritual book, but it doesn't have everything in there. The monitor.
Right.
So we'll give those things to candidates, and we're okay. But if we're just looking at where that $120 goes, for us, we have approximately 300 members in our lodge. Our building costs about $20,000 to maintain. You divide that $20,000 over the cost of those people, and it comes out to about $67 a head. Now, if you think about it, before we raised the dues, we were at 60, and half of that had to our temple board.
Right.
So the temple board was only being funded $25 instead of $67. So we were dipping in all day long into charitable funds in order to pay these bills when we would get assessed. So the stipulation in our bylaws now says $67 per paid dues membership goes into the temple board. And then we have $10 goes to per capita, $5 goes to the secretary fee, $2.50 to the treasurer, and it leaves $35, I believe, that go into the reserves. But out of that $35, who's to say what happens with that 35? I'm a big fan of running a zero-sum game. At the end of the day, I don't want to make any money. I just want to break even, because then it's clean, but it also doesn't, and I'm sure you'll get into this, but it doesn't leave any room for emergency funds.
Right.
But those are kind of my initial comments.
Right on. Well, before we jump over to Nick real quick, kind of clarify, because in my numbers I realized I'm out of spot. So those of you that are crunching the math on me, you're going to see that I was off a few bucks. So out of the $61 that it costs to give the candidate or new brother materials, that is before shipping or tax. So at that point, it puts us at about a -5. You add in the Grand Lodge charge of $5, we're at -10. So the math is there, it's hurting. But just wanted to clarify that for those of you that are going to be blowing up the comments afterwards. So Nick, we'll go ahead and jump over to you. And what's your thoughts on the dues issue?
Don't worry, they'll be blowing up the comments after I speak. So, I wrote a piece, The Elitist Inside. And, it's one of those that spurred a lot of discussion. Because I came up with this concept. For me, the problem that we have in any dues discussion is you constantly have but what about the older guys, or what about the guys who are broke, or what about and so when I came and started at this idea, I first started with the idea of we shouldn't be looking for Masons until they are at a financial point in their life that this is something that won't become another thing. Right. And so, I found it kind of interesting after I posted that everybody was very, they view Mason as this society that's supposed to essentially break the stones out, work the stones, and then they're perfect, blah, 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 right? And I'm like, no. They've already been quarried. We've already found the good guys that are already at a point where you can consider them a stone at this point. So, for me, I think the dues discussion has to come out to what are you valuing Freemasonry at? And so to describe it, at least at my lodge, when I joined, it was $200. I think it's still $200 to join, which when I first heard that number was shocking because I thought it was much, much lower than it should have been. And I know I've heard so many people say the same thing, when I was master and things like that. $200, that's it. Okay, well, all right, well, let's see, and let me write the check now, and
right.
It's not so much that you're trying to keep out people based on a value, a number, right? You want to make the number actually appropriate for what you're doing. And there was somebody who said, I'm not sure if it's Piers Vaughn or another Masonic rep, it used to be 2 weeks of pay for a laborer was how much dues were a year, right? Well, if we consider that minimum wage is technically the lowest amount you can pay someone to be what do you call it? To be in this country, that's $600. That's $600. That would be what 2 weeks of pay would be, right? Well, $600 isn't really all that much when you really think about it. But unfortunately, people don't think about it that way. They think about, well, it's $75. That's a lot of money. I mean, how am I supposed to come up with that? And then you're like, but you're also in Shrine. You're also in Scottish Rite. You're also in York Rite. You're already valuing Freemasonry at $600, not more, because I've just counted, 4 organizations that now hit you at $600.
Yep.
And so really, under an economic theory, we already know how much the value of Freemasonry is. It's whatever the average amount of money somebody is paying into their lodge plus other bodies. And I guarantee you that hits at least $600, if not more. But, unfortunately, people don't really want to think about it that way, and I think it's a Depression era idea, that idea that, well, we've already got this can of beans. Why would I go out and, get better food? We've already got this can of beans, and it's like, well, it's already rotten. That's really why. So, why are we constantly worrying about conserving resources when we're running out of them? And that's so for me. Dues. Whenever you're discussing dues, I think you have to come first at it in a philosophical manner, which is what are we pricing this fraternity for? What is the purpose of this cost? And for me, it's that you want to. I'm not really a fan of zero-based budgeting on it. I'm more of a fan of the idea that it's to encourage you to increase the experience that you're going to find to that dollar value.
Right.
And so.
No, I totally get what you guys are saying. And, the funny thing is, when I came to Masonry, I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'll be very blunt. My financial situation has very much improved from where I was to where I am now. By no means a millionaire by any standards to that. But when I came into Freemasonry, I was worried about the money. I don't know why, because, I mean, you put it into reality, and God, you go to McDonald's anymore and you're dropping $25. I mean, you spend on junk food in a month's time, put that over annual dues, but for some reason the dues payment was like, whoa. And then they talked about doubling it, and I freaked out. I was one of the guys against it. But growing into Freemasonry where I am now, I have to look back and say, wow, I really didn't understand the value of money. And more than that, I really didn't understand the value of this craft that I'm in, this thing that I'm really supporting, because I'm 110% on the opposite side of the spectrum now. I'm like, we talk about guarding the West Gate, but it's more like, and we'll pay you $10 actually,
Mm-hmm.
And it's an eye-opening fact. I mean, not just that, just to throw some more numbers at you guys. This is something I'm going to be addressing in my lodge. We're coming out of darkness this next week here, and preparing this presentation I just did kind of brought all this to reality. It's always been there, it, but it's like, bam, here's the pie chart that my wife made up for me. Our lodge has about 170 members. Well, members exactly. The average life expectancy for a male in the United States is 78 years old. Right now we have 40 individuals over the age of 78. Now obviously we don't want to just say, hey, you're gone today. That's a horrible way to look at it. But that possibility is there, right? That's 24% of our guys just anytime. We have
Alex.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off here, but this is something a great friend of mine, Scott Duvall, he actually was looking at this, and he does a presentation about this in our own area, and he talks about how something like 20 to 30% of our members are, within the next 10 years, older than the mortality rate.
Yeah.
He's like, and so when you think about that, we have some real problems.
Precisely.
The average age of the Masons in the state of Illinois is 62 and a half years old. In my district, it's also 62. My oldest member in our district is 102, and my youngest is 23.
And I guarantee, and if you look at how the Grand Lodge, it's very much going in the opposite direction what we're discussing now. Because, for them it's, well, why on earth would you want to raise up your dues fees now? You need to get these guys in now. And I sit there and go, well, that's not the way it works, I don't know.
And to that end, the Grand Lodge has a very idea. They're not on the same spectrum as I think the average Mason is when it comes to dues. They look at it like they care about the per capita. And with per capita, I get it. Illinois has the lowest per capita in the nation at $10 a head, which is ridiculous.
Right.
When I think about that, and I think about how much these guys sometimes cry about, Grand Lodge not doing this or not doing that, all I can think of is, well, you shoot down a per capita increase every year, guys. So it's an interesting way we're looking at it, especially like when they try to appeal to the majority. And in our case, you're appealing to the 62-year-old, which I'm not saying is a mistake. I think you need to appease your base, but also we really need to pay attention to who's going to be driving the car in like 5 years.
Right.
Well, and you know, that to that too. I mean, I wish we could. Okay, so we have such a large population of men that are of retirement age, right? And so the argument is constantly, well, they're on a fixed income, which, you know, we're all on a fixed income, you know, unless we're in sales. But you know, it's one of those that I wish we could create a cutoff, right, for every lodge, that they could separate them out, 2-tier system, right? So that you can get rid of that argument and then start to actually ramp dues up to where they belong, because, you know, that argument is going to be our death knell. I mean, that's what it is, you know.
So, Nick, you said something interesting, and you talked about how you have all these organizations that charge you the X amount of dollars. And it triggered a memory I had of a post John Ruark did in the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group, and it looks like it was back in January 31st. He wrote, "How much is masonry worth to you? Try this. Add up all your annual dues for all bodies, divide by 365, and post your results below. Essentially, how much does masonry cost you per day?" And it was interesting. You know, I just mentioned Scott Duvall's $1.10 a day. I think, Nick, you were at 93 cents. With all the organizations that I belong to, it's like $2.65 a day or something. But it's like that is an absolutely valid argument. You know,
yeah.
how much are all these organizations costing you when you really just look at it and add it up?
But, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, like I was describing before, I'm in a number of different bodies, and adding them all together, it's a little less than $300 a year, even though now it's going to be a little bit more because I've got another one possibly on the way. Anyway, I have an addiction, and I'm trying to get out of it, but I can't because, well, the
Nick will
needle's
sign
right there.
any petition. Like,
Anything.
you could give him a petition for the Turtles, and they don't even have a petition, but he'd sign it.
I'd sign it. I'd be like, and what are the dues again? Because I'm ready to go. I got my checkbook. I'm like the only person my age that has a checkbook. You know, it's like, hey, I'm ready to go.
Hey, Nick, I got one for you right here, buddy. We need some guys.
Hold on. I gotta hide these track marks from my PO. I'm like, but you know, it's like, but you know, that's the thing, is you can actually tell how much somebody is valuing Freemasonry, and at the same time you get these external pressures from the other bodies. You know, originally they were appended to, and they could charge as much as they could because guys were so excited to be members of the Masonic fraternity,
Right.
that they were valuing it higher, and it didn't matter. Well, now on the other hand, it's like, well, shrine dues are at $200. We can't raise our lodge, and it's like, well, you got to have this or split. I mean, that's how it works, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You're getting these external pressures from bodies that are supposed to be dependent upon something, and instead it's the tail wagging. That's a huge problem.
True. So kind of the second part of what I was saying there is, you know, we got that 24% that is over 78 currently, but we have 25% a decade behind. So in 10 years time, my is looking at being 51% lower. Like, that's a terrifying thought. Like, how do you cut the bills? You know, it seems to be this trend in masonry of, oh, we got to do things the way we've always done it, and we do it that way because we've always done it that way. You know, dues have not always been this cheap. That number had more value to it back in history. So, I mean, we're really kind of killing ourselves here. With my Grand Lodge, for example, this last year, I wanted to stand up in the middle of an applause, because every year, you know, it's like, for one thing, if you raise dues, how are you going to get people there? Because that's really the only thing they show up for. Last year, you know, the last couple of years, they've advertised, hey, we're talking about increases. Boom. Record amount of guys showing up to the meeting, and they all there to vote it down. Well, this last year, they come up and they're like, look, we've asked you over the last several years, what do you want to What do you want to do with that? And you guys, you want to keep this, you want to keep that, you want to add stuff here, you want to add stuff there. So now we're at the point of, we're at a crossroads and you need to make a decision. Either we can keep money where it's at and we drop this and drop this and drop this because they're no longer sustainable, or we keep it the way it is, but we have to add money here and add a little money to this. If you want it, it comes at a price tag. And the way they put it was much more elegant than that, but it was just like blunt, right in your face. There it is. No shiny trick. Yeah, it is what it is. And guys, I mean, come on, we're we're really really undervaluing this thing that we want to so highly about all the time, but it's not worth the extra cash.
Well, and it's kind of interesting is on the subreddit for our Freemasonry, they actually, and Masons, we always have to go back to George Washington.
Yeah.
But you always have to do that. Anyway, I was looking back. We were doing a calculation on an article or a question 2 years ago, and they actually, asked how much were his dues because he paid. I think it was 2 or 3 pounds, but in today's dollars, the fees would have been for his degrees would have been between $400 and $450, and that was just for his degree fees. And that's not unreasonable when you really think about it. $400, $500, $600, that's completely accessible for anyone making more than minimum wage.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But we've got these external pressures of guys that are saying I can't afford, and guys that are far too young to be Freemasons. I was one of them, so I can admit to this. I had no business being in a lodge at the time in which I joined. I should have waited at least 2 or 3 more years, because then at that point I would have been more financially able to give back to my lodge more. And I think that's just it. Is this whole discussion of dues it's not just how much are you willing to value it, it's how much are you willing to value the people that are in your lodge. And I just, I don't think we're at that point. I think we've so used to circling the wagons and not thinking about the future. It's, well, at least we got enough money to pay the light bill. That's
right.
That's a terrible way to think of the future.
So I often wonder, though, about raising the lodge dues. I always think about it in terms of what the building costs. And when it says the dues are too high, I can say, it's not that the dues are too high, this building is too expensive. So for me, I look at it like, if you don't want to have high dues, then we need to move. And if that means building like a bungalow type steel shed lodge that I've seen, a couple hundred of, in terms of lodges I've visited across the United States, sure, at a time in our United States history, Freemasonry had a lot of members. Members built some fantastic structures. I've made the argument that they built those structures, but those guys are writing checks that the future generations can't cash, and we aren't going to be able to sustain those buildings. I mean, the building Waukegan built in 1921, we sold in 1980 something for $35,000. It was going to cost $6 million to bring it up to code then, and it sold last year in Waukegan for $11 million. And we got rid of it for $35,000. We fitted an old furniture store, and that's where we meet today. And and you think about that, and we're still charging $120 a year for dues to maintain a really large furniture store, essentially. I mean, it's a really big building. We've got amount of space, a great dining hall. We've got a great lodge room, storage, and it's wonderful. But the fact is, if my guys don't want to pay $120 for dues, then it's time to move. And I'm okay with that. I feel like that's just that needs to happen, then that needs to happen. And if you don't ever want to collect dues again, a lot of guys, they bring up this talk of, I don't know if you guys have them in your states, but life memberships. Mm-hmm. I don't like lodge memberships. People say, oh, they're really good, yada yada yada. Look, good for the brother, they're not good for the lodge. For us, the way these things work, your listeners who might not know, in Illinois it works like this. We charge you X amount, a minimum of 15 times the dues, and then that number is put into an account at the Grand Lodge, and the Grand Lodge sends an annual return back to the lodge, which is usually about 4.2% of your total account value. So when you think about that, if we want to do nothing, but, like earlier I said, out of the $120 that we get, 67 has to go just to the temple board. Now, if I have life members that are continuing to come to the building, I'm getting $13 a year back from those guys.
Wow.
So you tell me how that's good for Masonry or for the lodge or whatever. If you want life memberships, I'll tell you, the other thing is, it's on average about 10 years after a member has died before we see $1, really. And on top of that, if you want to that, hypothetically, what would it be if I wanted all $20,000 to be that 4.2%? If all my lodge members had to buy a life membership, what would that life membership cost them? We'd have to have an account that worth almost $500,000 where we saw our 20 grand. You know what I mean? It's astronomical. In fact, it's a lot higher than that. So you're going to have math guys. You guys are going to have math guys come in and tear this apart. Basically, huge numbers you have to have account to get your 4.2% to be $20,000, and you're meant to pay that. And if you wanted a really cool lodge, maybe only 30 guys, that's a $10,000 deposit to the Grand Lodge member.
Right.
It's insane.
And the thing is with these life memberships as well, they've got this issue of when they don't have enough money in the Grand Lodge side of the account, either the Grand Lodge is taking reserve funds and infusing cash into that fund to bring it up, or they're not paying out any of the life membership. I've seen that too, where you're promised this return, life membership, and all of a sudden Grand Body will say, well, this year we're not making any distributions because it didn't make enough. So you're putting lodges out because now they have absolutely no funds to give to, either based off of what I would consider a broken promise, or that they just don't have any of the cash anymore. And right. So it's going to be a broken system it's going to die probably just from lack of cash. It's going to run out of money.
Anybody who's out there, like I said, going into this dues argument, who says, well, what about life memberships and dues? There's your answer. They suck.
They're terrible. And and jumping on your building, I'm slowly, and so my next blog post that's going to be part 2 of this other one is actually at the idea of a lightweight lodge or a flexible lodge model. And apparently in California, I found this out listening to another podcast, and so I'm super excited that it's actually happening. And it's this idea that why are we attached to our buildings? I know Freemasonry likes to become a substitute for church. I know I just said that, and some people are puckering right now. I apologize, but the thing is, it's true. People actually will treat Freemasonry as if it's a church, and so the building becomes so important because it's so important to the culture, because this is the one thing that brings us together. And you see it with actual church. They'll close a congregation down instead of moving to rental space for a few years. They'll shut it down because they're not getting enough members. That's crazy. Right? I mean, the congregation still exists. The lodge still exists. And so I'm pushing this idea that we need to stop thinking about buildings so much.
Right.
I mean, we can do buildings. I don't fault any lodge for owning a building. My lodge owns a building. my building. It's beautiful. But I'm starting to think that maybe it's not for everyone. And
Right.
maybe we need to start backing away from why do we view the, and then the dues argument becomes a, what do you want to use this value of this cash for the thing that you're doing? And that's fantastic, because now it's a very different proposition. Now it's, what is X doing for Y? What fun thing, what kind of meals am I getting? What kind of education? What kind, this and that. And it gets totally away from, well, we can't afford the lights. The water's really expensive. Did you know that, guys? We really shouldn't be flushing anymore.
Right.
Just stop. I mean,
Take your pail home with you.
yeah, it's like, bring your own paper towels in because they're just too expensive. And you're like, guys, why are we doing this to ourselves? We're just hitting our foreheads on a wall and not getting anywhere. So,
Yeah, see,
I don't know. I'm pushing away from buildings.
I totally agree with your philosophy behind that. I 100% do. Right now, I'm split on that. See, the lodge I was raised in was like your 70s model building. It honestly didn't mean that much to me. It was, I would say, much nicer than one I'm in now. It was larger, it's newer. But coming to Gardner, being the history nerd that I am, it's one of those buildings I walk in and I can just feel the past. We got this old picture of McClintock, who was master over that lodge for like 30 years, not consecutively, but pretty close in time, staring at you when you walk in. And something about that, I'm just like, it gives you that feeling of, I'm a brother's keeper. I'm not letting this place go. But then I got the other guy on the other shelf me. No, that it makes total sense. These buildings come with cost. It really just comes down to our experience. I mean, when it comes down to it, every lodge is different, and what do you want to get out of it? Experience comes with a cost. I mean, we can go for experience, or we can go rogue and meet in caves of firelight. Sounds kind of cool too. I don't know, but I don't know. But I guess we are kind of getting close. Why don't we just go ahead with final thoughts and see what you guys think there.
So, for me, I think, and I wrote enough blog posts about this, saying that we're running out of elite type people. Elite doesn't mean, we're running out of people that are intellectually capable of handling Freemasonry. And those are the same guys that are in jobs that are very much, they're intelligence based. They work with their minds and things like that. And that includes people like linemen, people that are master plumbers, these people are not joining Freemasonry. The people joining Freemasonry are schlubs like me. And I know that sounds terrible, but I do wish that there were, I don't know. And see, with my elitist paper, it really got heated because it does feel uncomfortable to say this, but sometimes I really do want to hang out with those that are considered my betters. And I think by valuing Freemasonry so low, we've just become another service organization and not a particularly good one, because we're not very good at the service side. So, we're losing whatever we were, whatever we are, and whatever we could be, because we're just valuing this place and making it just not worthy of the title and prestige that Freemasonry, since far earlier than 1717, has to gain. And I wish and hope that we can actually finally, and maybe it's going to be a good thing when this large cohort of ages finally goes, that all of a sudden we will be forced into a rebuilding period. And when that happens, hopefully the dues are raised at the same time. But that's kind of my final thought on this. Thank you. I have a blog, millennialfreemason.com.
Wonderful. Well, you hit a great point there. And actually, in that recent presentation I did, I was bringing up these numbers, and then I hit the point of that change that we've seen over the last decades in Masonry, being the club versus the crowd. I saw a lot of mouths just go, it's not a popular topic to bring up, but it's got a valid point behind it. But anyways, RJ.
Man, the club be the craft. I've never heard that before. And I think that's really interesting. I've never looked at it that way or heard it put that way, but that is appropriate for sure. I feel, again, that when the dues match, you got to get together and look at all of your expenses. And I think it's simple math. You just take that, double it, divide it, people you got, why double it so that you don't put yourself in the hole if something happens. It's kind of like when I've got a lot of friends who do some independent things like art, or they're in business for themselves. My wife used to bake cookies, on the side, and she had a side business. And the thing was, I would look at the cost and then say, okay, so I'm going to make this many cookies and this is the cost. And I'd look at her and it was absolutely crazy. Like, she says, well, the bakery down the street only charges $2.50 a cookie. And I'm like, yeah, but they're buying their ingredients, this cost, they're doing this, and they're paying their people garbage. Like, you have a gourmet, you do this. So in the end, I say, and to all my friends, my advice is, especially anybody listening, whether that's a lodge or you're in business for yourself, whatever you think you charge, double it. Guarantee you they'll pay it, because if you're quality, you're good, right? And so I just think that's a good buffer for you. So if you guys take your expenses, double them, and throw it out there, and that's your lodge dues. Take all of your fees, your petition fee, your degree fees, and double those too. That's what we did, and it worked out really well. And you know what? If you think we're going to lose members, the only people you're going to lose by doing that are a couple of guys who don't want to come anymore, because it's almost like if you raise the dues, I'm not more, and now they want to come even though you raised them, but they're not going to, because they're not going to be, they don't want to be the guy who comes in with his tail between his legs, and that's fine too. We're not about upsetting anybody, but the facts are facts, and when it comes down to being financially responsible, the executive officers have a fiduciary responsibility to the lodge, and as long as you're in that building, you need to treat it like you're keeping that building, and if you're going to keep that building, charge. Now, there are a couple buffers out there, right? So that petition fee doesn't really count into anything, those degree fees. I mean, those are fees that pay for holistic items, really, your performance. But the dues are tied to stuff, and so we need to make sure that those paid on the regular year. Last year I suspended 26 for non-payment of dues. This year I suspended 7, and I suspect this number will continue to be about between 5 to 10 guys every year until we're down to about 80, because that's about how many guys I have that when I send those dues notices out, in 1 month I've sent out 80 dues cards. What's sad is I have guys who don't pay dues who are officers. I love that. I love that. I mean, I hate that. It's that meme that I put up occasionally of Liam Neeson, and he's on the phone, right? You, and you will pay me dues. So, the takeaway, my final thought is fiscal responsibility. And so you do what you have to do to make it work. And sometimes people are going to get mad, but in the end, we're brothers, and it's not personal. People say we're not a business, but in many cases we're a 501c3, and the second we accept that tax responsibility, you are a business. You need to treat it that way.
Very true.
And again, that's that. Sorry about my ranting, whether it's online or whatever. I always like to tell folks, especially this recent article that Nick did. I love Nick's writing. I love the ideas he puts out there. So I'm always in your corner, Nick. Thanks for taking the heat for most of us. And with that, I'm out with that. So if you like podcasts, Whence came you 9:30 on Sunday nights. That's all. Thanks,
Wonderful.
Alex. It was amazing to be on with you. A real honor.
I definitely appreciate it. And what just kind of reflected on there, very, very good points. And I challenge you all to go back and examine your own lodges. Look at that historical factor. Go back and look, back when your lodge was chartered, what was the value of your lodge? And look at it through time. Don't take it for that dollar amount, but what was that dollar amount worth today? See what the brethren back then valued the experience at, and see what you value it at today. And then also compare and contrast and see, does your lodge give value behind that dollar amount? Or if they don't, fix it. Make the experience better, make it worth it. Freemasonry is ours right now, and it's up to us to continue it if we want it to. So thank you guys so much for coming on the show. It means the world to me, and I hope this conversation sparks some more conversations and improves the craft as a whole. So thank you guys all so much. We'll have the links available below and on the website so you can keep in touch with these great men. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview just as much as I did. To brothers Nick and RJ, thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. It was very much appreciated. I really enjoyed sitting down and kind of digging in on your guys' knowledge and expertise a little bit on the matter. So thank you again. Really, really appreciate it. To the rest of you, I want to urge that you jump over to our Facebook group and continue the conversation there. That is the Historical Light Masonic Research Group on Facebook. So if you're not a member there, definitely check it out today. Search it up, click join. We'll get you in on the action. There's some great conversations going on, and we'll continue this conversation there as well. So take part in that today. And we'll see you there until next time when we continue our quest for historical light. Take care.